As I'm sure you all already know, and as many predicted, Oscar Valdez unfortunately was unable to retain his unbeaten record and unable to unify the belts at junior lightweight. Instead, Shakur Stevenson becomes the first man to do so since 2005. In this video, we're going to go over some of the key contributing factors to Shakur's overwhelming success, as well as some of the major mistakes that Oscar made and some of the things that he could have done better. So if you're interested in hearing my analysis of this fight, it would really mean the world to me if you liked, commented, and subscribed to let me know that you appreciate this type of content. That being said, let's get this started with the number one contributing factor for Shakur's success, which was the use of his lead hand. In my opinion, there were 5 main ways that Shakur effectively used his lead hand to contain and control Oscar's movement and behavior in the ring. In no particular order of importance, the first thing that I noticed was that Shakur was initiating and ending his combinations with the lead hand. By initiating combinations with his jab, Shakur was more safely able to enter close range, where most people would consider Oscar more dangerous. Once on the inside, Shakur was able to throw shorter, more powerful punches, such as hooks and uppercuts, and maintained his defensive responsibility by exiting with the jab. This prevented Oscar from responding with large counterpunches. The second thing I noticed Shakur doing quite frequently with his lead hand was doubling the jab, and often changing levels with it, switching from the head to the body at times. The double jab was one of the main tools that Shakur used to quote-unquote handcuff Valdez. As you may have heard some of the announcers talking about, it seemed as though Oscar was unable to release punches from his guard. This was largely due to the suppressive fire coming from Shakur's double jab. Clearly, Stevenson realized that Oscar's high guard was blocking his peripheral vision to the outside, similarly to horse blinders. This meant that all Stevenson had to do was throw the jab to block the one gap down the middle that Oscar could see through. This gave Stevenson the ability to move behind his punches without Oscar even seeing it, as well as made it easier for Shakur to time the openings created by Oscar's abrupt eruptions from his guard. In tandem with the double jab, Shakur would also switch it up with the lead hook at times. Switching between the double jab and the jab hook made it very difficult for Oscar to tell which was coming next. When Shakur did decide to switch it up and throw the jab hook instead of the double jab, Oscar would get steered directly into his left hand. By initiating and ending with the jab, Shakur was completely able to control the distance of the fight. And by switching between the double jab and the jab hook, he was able to keep Oscar guessing and off balance. Shakur brilliantly tied that all together by throwing a simple jab cross hook combination. Again, by finishing with the lead hook, Shakur was able to redirect any potential forward momentum Oscar would retaliate with, making him off balance over his toes towards the open space created by their mirrored stances, leaving him completely vulnerable for the left hand again. Shakur also threw a punch we call the check hook with his lead hand quite frequently during this fight. He would tend to find his opportunities to do so when Oscar would widely overreach with his lead hand. As you can see in this example here, when Oscar reaches for the overhand left, Shakur throws the lead hook on the inside of it, catching him perfectly with the check hook. It's actually the same punch that resulted in the one and only knockdown early in round 6, which didn't really seem to hurt Oscar, but rather was perfectly timed. Last but not least, Shakur brilliantly controlled Valdez with something we call the forearm frame. Shakur most frequently used this technique when Oscar would present his head on his front foot with his hands high. It was another great opportunity for Shakur to quote-unquote handcuff Oscar. By pressing his lead hand on Oscar's guard and head, he was able to keep his hands pinned and unable to throw, as well as push Oscar back in a way which tended to expose his body, opening it up for the left hand. The next thing I noticed about Shakur in this fight was his unbelievable hawk-like vision. You'd be pretty hard-pressed to find a moment where Shakur doesn't appear to be looking directly at Oscar. Even in moments like this where he's in the clinch, he's still got his eyes over his shoulder at him. It was that vision and awareness that allowed Shakur to easily capitalize on many of the mistakes that Oscar made, like this one in round 1. There's so many things that Shakur did well in this fight that it's really impossible to go over them all without going on for hours. Each technique could really be a video in and of itself. From all of the aforementioned to all of the ones that I completely missed, like his amazing footwork, his impeccable positioning, and his prominent ability to make people miss. So before I get carried away, let's get into what Oscar could have done better. First off, in my opinion, Oscar spent far too much time with his head on his front foot. Not only did it make it a better target for Stevenson, but it also fatigued his legs quicker, leaving him unable to bring the fight to Stevenson the way he really needed to get things done. Along with spending too much time on his front foot, of course, Oscar also made the mistake of keeping too high of a guard. As I mentioned before, I believe this was blocking his peripheral vision significantly and allowing Stevenson to cover his vision while moving behind his punches. Oscar's best chance in this fight was always going to be to get Stevenson to the ropes and rough him up as much as possible. The few times he was able to do that, he had quite a bit of success. And in the middle of the ring, when exiting the clinch, Oscar had the potential to be quicker, but would frequently neglect to capitalize on those opportunities, and I believe it's because he was intending to box Shakur instead of fight him. Oscar just didn't really seem to want to leave it all on the line in this fight, in my opinion. It was more so as if his heart was telling him what he wanted to do, and he would do that at some points during the rounds, but then go back to the corner, and his corner would tell him otherwise, getting him back to the game plan that wasn't really working. Lack of adjustment from the corner was definitely surprising, but I think if Oscar had just fought bell to bell all 12 rounds, he would have had a much better chance of winning the fight. One of the more major mistakes that I noticed Oscar making quite frequently was that when he would get knocked back away from Shakur, he would do this little ollie shuffle style switch step to get back into position, and it was really more so just a telegraph for Shakur to let him know that Oscar wanted to come back into his range, and so he would respond to that with a simple jab or a stiff arm of sorts to keep him from coming forward. Oscar also made the minor mistake of showing his frustration to Shakur by tapping his gloves together a few times, which of course Shakur used as perfect opportunities to land. Alright guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching, and it would really mean the world to me if you would leave a comment down below letting me know what you think Stevenson did best to win this fight. Of course, as always, feel free to drop any criticisms or any ways you think I could improve this style of video. I'd really appreciate that too. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with the bell notifications on. Also, comment down below if you'd like me to do a similar breakdown for the Canelo vs. Bivol fight. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.